Hey, good morning, everyone. Actually, it's not morning. It's 2:24 here. I extended my stay another night. One because it was just the weather I was expecting the same weather as yesterday. But let's get the informatives out of the way. It's June 6th. That makes June 6th. That makes day 48 here in Thailand. I'm coming to a closure on my visa. I still got a little bit longer, obviously, but I still got a little ways to go. I'm not pressed for time by any means. I came down to 7-Eleven. I know the backdrop's not the most beautiful and gorgeous in the world. I could have gone down to the beach, but I figured let's just have an honest opening, so I had to get my caffeine, and they hooked me up. They filled it all the way up to the top. So this is the frappe. For 50 baht, which is $1.50, for a large, fresh made, fresh brewed, frappe. You're not going to get back to that back in the States and stuff like that. Plus, the original place of Red Bull is right here in Thailand. For the ones that didn't know, this is where Red Bull started. And this is how it started. Well, actually, I think they still have the original smaller bottles. But all the ginseng drinks and the different ones like this are just very popular here. It's actually harder to find caffeinated drinks than it is just like the ginseng drinks. Unless you just go for the straight source, They don't have an abundance like they do back in the States of the Mountain Dew and all this stuff. I would kill for a Mountain Dew, actually, honestly. It's all Coke and Pepsi here. It's like, where's my Mountain Dew, homie? But it's just me. I grew up, on Mountain Dew. Well, I didn't grow up on Mountain Dew. We were not allowed as kids. Okay, growing up out in the sticks, my dad was very conscious about, well, one, we couldn't really afford the doctor bills and stuff like that but my father was very conscious about health and stuff like this. And stuff like my brother was a hyperactive child. And a lot of the doctors back then would actually suggest the more natural route first too. They're like, well, you need to change the diet and stuff like this, especially when you're dealing with the smaller town type doctors. And so my dad started investigating, and my sister had early arthritis problems as a child and stuff. So it was right off the bat. It was like my father became very health conscious. He was already health conscious, but he became a lot more so when he had children. And so we grew up with no sugar and stuff like this, no artificial colors, and no, these things have always actually been known to be bad for you. But for some reason in the United States, we get away with feeding, the companies feeding us poison, which is not allowed in other countries. So like we have a Cheetos and a Doritos that are just made for the United States, where those chemicals and I think we all know that. The ingredients that are in the United States are not allowed in a lot of the other spots. And it's kind of ridiculous that we're allowed to actually poison ourselves. But anyway, I kind of stayed up late last night because I got wrapped up in watching a video I just ran into it by Tristin Riddle. And I'll put up a link to his video, in the description here. It was awesome, man. I paddled the Mexican border on a inflatable raft. He just posted it now 11 days ago. So it was one of those things that were just like, it was mesmerizing, but it was also like an hour and 46 minutes long. So by the time I actually got off, it was like, pushing over 1 o'clock, it was cracking over 1 o'clock, 1:15 or something. So I kind of started late. So I decided, I'm going to kick up my feet for a little bit and try and slow down a little. I know it's been brought up a lot of times that, and I've answered it a few times. Tom brings it up a lot. Is like, why am I not slowing down? Especially people at my age need to be slowing down and not, acting like a young buck running everywhere so much. But it really is just, it's been my style of travel, even in the United States. like as soon as you stop moving, you become homeless. If you're constantly moving, then you're a traveler. You're a vagabond. But as soon as you stop, you're considered what's called a home bum. A home bum is a person that just stays in one place all the time. Nothing wrong with it. It's the people that you actually get to see over and over again when you're going from town to town to town, because you know that person's still most likely there. Krusty was that way up in Mount Shasta. He was a homebody. He never moved around, and he was a good guy. And like I said, you get on a circuit and you actually revisit the spots over and over again, but you don't really stay like real long in one place. You go to the next spot, but you've been there like already 10 times before in the past and stuff. And that's why I said you can bury gear, because when you're running a circuit, in a travel circuit, you can come back to that spot. So you can take all your winter gear and stuff like that, and you can either do 5-gallon buckets or something with a lid, or you can just bag, black bag, duffel bag with black bag, anything to keep the gophers out or whatever. And you can bury it in sand. Is very easy. Dirt, you need to find, but sand, you better dig down a little bit. I do know people that buried along the riverbanks and stuff like that, because the ground's softer, but you got to put it down a little ways, because the rivers change flow and stuff like that. But usually, yeah, it's safe. Just make sure. I mean, it's burying gear. People do it. It's just so you don't have to lug that stuff around forever. But yeah, so I watched that last night. I'm just trying to when I get to Malaysia, I'm going to have a 3-month visa. It's not the fact that I'm really running as quickly through these countries. It's just the style of travel that I'm doing right now on a bicycle doesn't doesn't allow for a lot of time for me to actually kick back my heels, because I am leaving just as soon as my visa's expired. So I am actually staying the whole time. I'm just not extending it, because the reason why is I have a little bit of a hard time, going usually through the hassle of going to immigration and then applying for and paying for an extension. Now, visa run, I might do a visa run. I've done actually in Morocco. I went up to that little part that sticks out that's owned by Spain. I went through there and came back and did a border run that way, a visa run that way, to extend my, well, actually, I just went with the people that were extending it, their visas. I just, by happen, since I was with them, ended up getting mine extended too. I didn't really need to, though, because I still had over a month on it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's funny because it actually turned out to be a very nice day today. So there's a little clouds in the sky, but over here you can see the blue up there. The sun's out. So thinking it was going to rain, it didn't. So yeah, when I get to Malaysia, I'm going to probably try and slow down a little. I'll ride my bicycle through Malaysia to begin with. That way I can continue this little, cheap bicycle through yada yada, Right now it's cheap bicycle through Thailand, but before it was cheap bicycle through Cambodia, before that. But I want to do a circle around Malaysia, and then once I make the circle around Malaysia, I think I'll start on the west coast, go down the west coast, up around the east coast. I guess Singapore, I don't know how hard it is to get through. I know you can cross through Singapore within a day, that way you avoid really buying the food. And I don't know how hard it is to actually just, like the video that Tom, you sent me, they said you can actually cross it within hours, and I don't know. And then they have rails to trails. Rails to trails is like in the United States and other spots, when the railroad service was a lot more popular for like, for like in Hawaii and stuff, the railroad service was there for sugar plantations and stuff like that. But they became less and less useful through the time as the main form of transportation, and a lot of them were just basically not being used anymore. In the United States, it was all the ones on the West Coast that go from north to south, you know, like through the redwoods and stuff like this. They just don't use them anymore, so they start ripping up the tracks and turning them all into, well, trails. And they're very nice trails. They are. They're super nice trails. Because the railroad used to go through some really nice country. But I guess that's Singapore has something like that too. But like I said, I'm not gung ho about Singapore at all. From all the information I get to it, but if it's one of those things that I can cross within a day and come out the other end, it depends. I'll have to do some research. But like I said, as far as Singapore, it's just not on my to go list. You know, I'm not worried about it at all. Today, I don't know what I'm doing. Today, I'm just videoed this little part. I think mostly today I'm just going to be researching my entry into Malaysia, the routes I might want to take. Like I said, I don't know anything about these countries I go to. I just go to them, and then I figure it out as I go along. Yeah, and maybe I'll try and slow down a little, but like I said, it's in my blood just to keep moving, and it's how it is. It's just it's the vagabond. You know, it's like I'm not quite ready to actually settle down and be slow, because I know a lot of people my age are more or less looking at these countries and these places that I am in because of the affordability, that the money that we do have, you know, especially if you're on SSI or any type of retirement, is not enough to live in the United States. And so you come to a country like this, and your standard of living, your quality of life actually triples. You know, it triples for the same amount, you know. And you can have a full belly, a beautiful spot along a beach, all this stuff. And these are gorgeous places. And I fully understand why people are just like, why are you going through it? Why don't you just stop? Well, the main reason is because I have not checked off the world yet. The world has to be done with it, you know. So that's my goal. My goal, regardless of what form of transportation I take, it's the world. I want to check that box and say, yeah, I've seen the whole world, you know. Maybe not Antarctica. I think the penguins won't miss me too much. But maybe not that spot. Plus, I don't think there's any cheap hostels down in the Antarctic. But yeah, guys, it's my main thing is because I'm a vagabond in heart, and I have not checked the world off yet. So once I check the world off, guys, I'll slow down. But till then, you just got to keep on vagging, got to keep on going, and keep on being me. So, all right, guys, we'll figure out something to do today. But I'm gonna end it there. 13 minutes. All right. All right, people, let's go for a bike ride. Beautiful day.
4 minutes.
On your right. Hello. Hello. Excuse me. I'll go on your left. Sorry about that. Thank you.
They're not the big fishing trawlers.
I have no idea where all those people are going, but I'm assuming it's a boat of some type. I mean, that kind of gives it away. There might be a boat. Especially that thing right there. We'll see where they're going. Yeah, it was a boat. They were all boarding onto a boat. Don't know where they're going. Well, we're kind of at the end of the line here, people. And there's a storm moving in. And it's starting to make a little bit of noise. So, I'm gonna hop on my bike, start pedaling back. It's actually like 4 something anyway. It's 4:44. There's a little bit more I'm gonna film up here though. If those dogs don't get me. They don't look mean. Yeah, so I'm gonna film a little bit more up here on the peak because this is like a little peninsula that comes out. Boats on this side, beach on that side. And there's a sign over here. I'm gonna pack it up, start heading back. Throw this together real quick. It was good. I got out, was able to explore the other beaches I haven't. And tomorrow I'm probably gonna get back on my bicycle, and rain or no rain, just pedal on ahead. I need to start planning this out a little bit better because if it rains, I'll figure it out. As long as there's a covered bus shelter and I pack up all my stuff in bags, I'm good to roll. You know, I don't mind pedaling in the rain. When it goes on to like 2 or 3 days straight of it, where you're constantly soaked all the time, that's the only time when it gets a little annoying. Or if it was cold, I wouldn't want to be wet at all either. But it's not cold really. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna push ahead. This was Landmark Beach. It was the first one we came to. This is a different beach. I'll put the name down below earlier on. But yeah, anyway, you'll see all the names of the beaches. The sign's right over there. One thing I did notice is they did have signs that said beware of theft, but I think that's just common sense anywhere you go. This would look like a nice little camping area out here though. I mean, they're smaller trees, so they're going to bend a little. You find enough for a hammock, but even on just a normal tent, there's some really nice spots out here. I just don't see a lot of signage that people are actually been camping out here. Lots of foot traffic down below and scooter traffic, but so I think this is still the national park, so they might frown upon it. But who cares, man? You can get away with one night anywhere. Here's the sign I was talking about. Well, I made it out to the point. So this is it. This is as far as we go here, people. And now we head back. Yeah, this is beautiful. So much for the camping, obviously. There's a tourist service area right there. I mean, I don't see anybody in there. So honestly, like I said before, hammocks have a better stealthiness to them because when a ranger or someone pulls up on you, they don't know if you've been there all night or if you just set it up for day use. So during the morning in Hawaii, that's how we rolled, at least on the beach that I was at. I was a ground camper, but there were several of the other Hawaiian home bums out there, beach bums, that did the, yeah, this thing right here, tourist service point. Some of the beach bums where I was at the beach that we camped at, they yeah, they did the hammock thing. They would put it up at night, and actually they decided after a while stop taking it down. You know, there was no point in taking it down because they don't know how long you've been there. So that's one reason I like the one reason I like the hammock better, because of the stealthing factor to it. There's like the same way that I actually liked having the teepee as a tent, because it gave a childhood nostalgic type feel to it, where it was like almost less threatening than a tent is. What I mean by threatening is sometimes when you're walking out in the middle of nowhere and you come up along onto a campsite with a tent and everything, it automatically has you're thrown on guard, you know, because it's like you don't know if the guy's a weirdo and stuff. He thinks the exact same thing about you, though. I mean, there's nothing worse than being out in the middle of nowhere in a tent and someone rolls up on you and you're like, oh great, is this guy a weirdo? But you know, these things they're just precautionaries because you're out in the middle of nowhere. A lot of times, well, this day and age, you don't have to worry about it. You most likely have a signal now, but you don't always have a signal, and especially back a little farther back, not that far long ago, you lost signal really fast, you know, once you got away from the towers. So yeah, there's a factor to it, and it's weird because you can still call 911. Like when I was doing gold down at the Bear River in like Colfax area, one of the things is even when it came to gold, everybody kind of camped out at the river because it was only $10 per night for the campsite, and usually you could just jump in the garbage because it was very popular for the drinkers too to go there. We did gold, but there's a lot of people that always, you know, on the benches and stuff drinking their beer and throwing away the cans. Well, in the morning we would go through the dumpster and pull out all the aluminum, and all you had to do is go up the hill to Colfax, which is a beautiful railroad town. It's actually the last turnaround before Truckee. Truckee gets snowed out because it's on Donner's Pass, the Donner Party that ate each other. Colfax was the last spot, you know, to like, once, you know, at first they're like chains required, then after a while they're like, yeah, no, you can't even go over Donner's Pass, you know, every year it's like that. So yeah, all of like Reno and stuff like that gets snowed out, because, and you can't go from California over Donner's Pass to Reno and all this, but, so Truckee would get snowed out, but Colfax was the last turnaround, and then it was Auburn, Colfax, and Auburn's my hometown that I grew up in. Yeah, so doing gold down there, they kind of called it the river the homeless camp, right? Because it kind of was, because you could actually do IOUs. The ranger that came by would just collect, so you put an IOU, if you couldn't afford the $10, you put in a IOU $10 for the night, and he'd just chalk you down, and once you had like 3 or 4 IOUs stacked up, he would come and talk to you and say, hey, you got like $30 that you need to settle up with. And you'd settle up, but usually you can make the $10 just by canning in the morning, going into the garbage can, pulling out the cans, run up. Every day there was the recycler, you know, thing would open, turn in, and then you had your $10. And usually you could each campsite allowed like 2 vehicles and something like 4 tents, so you could actually have a lot of people. I knew one old timer that taught me how to do snifter bottling. That's where you get down to the bedrocks, a lot of times exposed in the river. He'd be in a wetsuit and a snorkel with a snifter bottle, and he would just pull up the gold, you know, flakes one by one with that, and he'd be in the water all day. But he was supporting a whole family of, well, they were mooches. They really were. You know, he had a son-in-law and a son. Well, they were all kind of not his kids anyway, but he was, you know, his wife's kids and or whatever. And so he was taking care of the whole family, and it was like they could get in the water too, they just didn't. And so they would come over and eat all his food and stuff like this and camp out there and not help out. So, but he was an old timer that actually taught me how to do snifter bottling, how to actually use a pan, and like through just one season of working gold, you know, you learn about the sleuth box, you learn about, you know, screeding in a 5-gallon bucket, you know, shovel and screeding out the bigger rocks, get down to the finite, the pay dirt, the high grade is what they called it, high grade dirt, meaning you're down to the very finer, like heavier stuff. And then you can use a gold hog and different things like this, so you can clean it. People actually cleaned it with mercury. So yeah, and mercury's one of those things that when you heat it up, there's a little bit of a poof, you know, smoke goes up. You can't inhale that at all. From what I understand, it's one whiff and you're dead type thing, but I don't know. I never whiffed it. But yeah, you could still go to the gold shop in Auburn, and you know, they had mercury under the table, but what mercury did was it sucked all the gold together into one, like bam, one nugget, you know. Where there was other type of ways of cleaning the gold. You can use hand soap, magnets work. Magnets take out, that's one of the last things you do. Magnets take out the iron, but leaves behind the gold, because gold isn't magnetic, and iron and gold are the two heaviest things that you end up with at the end. And the way you separate it is mercury, but you can also do it by hand. You can do snifter bottles, soap. Hand soap works just to, you know, break apart the particles. Not break apart the particles. It's like a lubricant almost, where it's easier to get the gold out. But when you use magnets, sometimes the iron will actually pinch onto the finer gold. And it depends on how much time you want to actually spend on the gold. You can get down to the finite. And then you go to Grass Valley. Grass Valley, there was a guy there that would pay 70% spot price. That's basically a 30% cut. So if it's worth $1,000, you're getting $700. Trust me, we never made that much money. We were lucky to pull a pennyweight a day, you know. Pennyweight was only about 70 bucks, or was at the time. But it was beer money and food money, right? And actually, the food was usually a church that came by, and we pick up food from the food banks and stuff like that. It was a very, very homeless life. Gold is a very homeless life. And yeah, that's one of the reasons, says old Steve Wallace. I was like, he used to do gold, you know, and I respect, because I was like, you know, he went through the hobo life too. Steve Wallace, the stealth camper. Yeah, but yeah, gold is one of those skill sets that was very handy to learn, you know, because now it's something I can always do it, because it takes minimal amount of equipment. A sleuth box is expensive, but you can make it. I made one once, and well, I took over a project that someone gave up on, and I finished it, and it was a huge one. And I had a little 19-foot RV at the time that I bought because someone close to me died and left me in the will. And I used that money to get out of the tent, and you know, and yeah, so I had that big old thing in the back, and yeah, that was the life of living on the river. Now, you know, it was like living in a van down by the river. Yeah, done that, been there, done that. So anyway, guys, yeah, that's a short version of my gold story. I was able to, in one season, learn through 3 or 4 different people, starting with the panners, the old guys that gave up after they couldn't, well, there's certain rules like no high banking, and that's where you go above the water line areas. You get up to the flood lines, right? And some people actually use what's called dynamite rope, and they break apart the crevices to try and get down in the crevices where all the old gold is and stuff, but that's very destructive. But high banking itself, because you can pull off like moss and stuff from the old flood areas, and the moss actually acts as a filter and absorbs a lot of the finer gold. And when you rip it off, the moss off, it has all the dirt that it's kind of growing in. That gold actually accumulates through that, and you can rinse it out, and then, you know, go through that, and then keep the old moss, dry it back out, then burn the moss and get the actually even finer part. You know, I never went to that extent. I just knew about it. I learned about this these styles through the old timers and stuff like that, and reading. There's some good books on gold too, like how to read rivers and stuff like this to know where the gold actually settles, you know, inside bank, outside bank, all that stuff. But yeah, so if you're gonna be a vagabond, it's very, very good. You know, learn a little gold, try that for a while. That is living down by the river though. And by winter time it closes down anyway, so you can only really do it through the spring, summer, and pushing into the winter until they rolled the big old boulders in front of the inlet, the road going in, the road going out. They'd actually roll huge boulders to make sure no one went down there during winter, and then they remove them when it, you know, it was open season again. But that was Colfax, guys. That was another fond memory of mine. And yeah, and there's a lot to gold, you know. Oh, and I also learned underwater. Yeah, so it's like one guy took me down eight miles. We were in like a inner tube. So we got in an inner tube and beer floats, right? We threw a few beers in the water and let them go down because otherwise you're trying to carry a whole 18 pack. But really you bring top ramen, a fishing pole, and top ramen, fishing pole, and you don't bring in canned goods and stuff. And you try and survive just off the fish that you eat. And yeah, and he had an old generator that he brought out there with like a oxygen bottle hooked up to it. It sits in an inner tube, right? So we floated down in inner tubes, but he already had the whole setup down there. He doesn't know how he's going to get it back out because he floated the setup down there. And you have a mask on, and the generator sits up on top of the water, which was, I think it was like about 15 feet deep, you know? And that doesn't seem like much until you're under there, right? And then you're like, oh crap, you're trying to get down under the big boulders, crevices, like at the base of them and stuff where gold might actually collect and stuff like this. There was like a little small cave that only went back about 3 feet and stuff like this, and it was only about 3 feet tall, you know. And you look going in there and scooping up all the gravel into like a 5-gallon bucket, and he hoists it up, you know, by hand. So you got to try and help him up with it, you know, because once you get to the top, it's rocks and water. You can't overload it. And he can start going through it, my partner who's teaching me this. But yeah, it was kind of crazy having all the weight, the weights around your waist, and then you're jumping into basically vertically straight down 15 feet. It's like a drowning effect, like instantaneously, right? And yeah, you can unclip the belt and it'll fall, but it just panic sets in. So I actually was like, I need to walk in, at least the first time, you know, walk in, get used to like these fishes actually coming right up to me. And it was weird because the water would be heading this way and the fish would be facing me and just kind of moving, so like against backwards. Yeah, like swimming backwards because the current didn't seem to affect it at all. And they were just checking me out, and it was like, it was weird. It was almost like being on a different planet. He told me, get down there and move that big old tree. I'm like, tree? It's like, don't worry, when you get down there, you're gonna see how light it is. And it was a huge tree. And I was like, as I picked it up from one end, the whole thing just floated up. It was waterlogged, so it was sitting on the bottom, but it was just barely waterlogged. I mean, the whole thing came up so easy, and I kind of just threw it downstream, you know, and got it moved out of the way. That way we could dig in the area underneath the tree was. And anyway, guys, that's a long ramble. Anyway, that's my gold days. There's a lot more to it. Learning the underwater was neat, but I only did it one time. It was a little sketchy at first, but you get used to it because you got to get over that drowning effect. You know, that's something trying to hold you underwater and stuff. But you do. And the pipe actually went up to the generator, so it's a big. You don't have tanks on the back. You actually have the water being. And if that generator turns off, you're out of it. So someone has to be up there watch. He watched the generator, and I did the work down below. And it's a 2-man operation because yeah, if that goes out, no air. So, all right, guys. Peace. That's a long one. I'm gonna get home and edit this and throw it out there so tomorrow I can start moving forward again towards the border and all that fun stuff. All right, guys. Peace out.